Ballpark Nation presents. Welcome to Go Astros, your look at the two-time World Series champions from three guys who have been here since Art Howe had hair.
And everybody, welcome to another edition of Go Astros. This is going to be a shorter hop. And before we jump into anything that's baseball related, just a reminder that it is the 23rd anniversary of September 11th. This is a hard day for a lot of Americans. I was driving into work thinking about at what point does 9/11 become sort of like December 7th, where we're not paying as big of an attention to it as we do that day, because the day arguably are two of the most important in American history. I think for this generation, in this particular instance, never. I hope not. And they were talking about on the news this morning about how some of the firemen that were marching in the the parade this morning, or the procession, I guess you would say, were actually children, sons and daughters of those who lost their lives on 9/11. So um, one of the great things about this country is we get to really do silly things like talk baseball for 5, 10, or 35 minutes. And we can only get to do that because we live in a country that's free, but that freedom is angers people across the world. And there's always going to be people that are going to try to disrupt it. And that's why we need to make sure we stay vigilant and we don't we don't forget the lessons from days like 9/11. And I know, like, right now, it's such a divisive time that we're one of the most divisive elections we'll ever have. It's it's been rough, and I feel like some of those things that we love about America have been taken for granted and maybe used and abused by both sides. It's why I was really honestly happy to see that both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris shook hands today at the 9/11 memorial. At some point, we need to recognize that all of this is one thing, but that when it comes to outside of this continental United States, we're all Americans. And there used to be the idea that politics stopped at the water's edge. And I hope that we get back to that. So just, I have friends who died on 9/11. I have soldiers of mine who died following 9/11 in some of the our military campaigns. So I'm always going to be thinking about them, praying for their families, and praying for all the ones that are still out there. And we don't have anybody in active war zones right now, but it doesn't mean we don't have anybody serving in some of the more dangerous parts of the world. So when we're enjoying all these little things like baseball, remember that we're enjoying those things for a reason. Yeah, enjoying things like baseball, like watching your very talented baseball team lose to the Oakland Athletics, which, to be fair, I'm sure a lot of people saw coming. I didn't, because I'm still an idiot when it comes to this baseball team. But you see, I've shown up today. It's Mass Day again here at St. Michael's Catholic Prep. One of my students asked me if I own every Astros tie in the pro shop. No, I only have one, and I was going to get it, but Jessica said it's ugly. So, we'll see. Last night, not a great game, but I was at least buoyed by the fact that the nature of offensive baseball is that it ebbs and flows. It comes and goes. We know the cliches that you fail 70% of the time, but what should travel and what should be there relatively constantly is your pitching. And after JV's performance on Sunday, I know all of us were a little shaken, but it looked rough for Arrighetti in the first and second inning, giving up a run each. But then that was it. He gave up 2 runs over 6 2/3. You would ask that of him every single time he walked to the bump. The Astros' ability to move runners, to use productive outs to score runs, situational hitting, as I often say, situational hitting. But didn't happen. Didn't happen several times. Honestly, if it would just happened once, it would have, won the game. I was especially frustrated when Bregman moved. I guess it was in the 11th, when Bregman moved a guy to third, and then Tucker and Yanni are immediately grounded out on one pitch and everything. And I was like, it's kind of weird to me, or disappointed. I might have it all wrong, but either way, you basically, they saw one pitch. Another guy was throwing 100 miles an hour, but they saw one pitch and they grounded out weakly, and the runner from third never got home. So Um, they got to be better at that. But offense ebbs and flows, and we've seen what this offense can do when it's running. And you have to keep running Kyle Tucker out there because you want to make sure he gets his reps, he gets his timing back before October. A lot of problems at first base, but there's no option. The only options we have are to mitigate how bad the defense is by hopefully getting something offensively out of first base. So there are no great options. The options really right are Carantini or Whitcomb, or not Whitcomb, or DeZenzo if he's even still up, Singleton, but really it's Diaz, Singleton, and Carantini, and those guys it's matchup based. You have to play the matchups with those guys because yeah, you're gonna get some offense out of them, but it means none of those guys are going to give you good defensive first baseman, or at least plus defensive first base. So if you try to plug somebody in that might give you that, you're going to get a weaker offensive production. And Nationals can't afford that right now. So it's not a good spot to be in. Here's hoping that the A's laying down bunt after bunt after bunt after bunt doesn't send a message to everybody else and we just get bunted to death for the rest of the season because, that could happen. I guess when you don't bunt in baseball, you also don't practice how to cover a bunt. Is that a thing? I don't know. But it's a really good place to be because it's not a great feeling after losing to the A's. It's not a great feeling after having every single opportunity to win the game. It's not a good feeling going for 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position, but you're still 4.5 games up. And in September, that is literally all that matters because the calendar is not the friend of the Seattle Mariners. They have at least, I think, 17 games left. They have a 4.5 game deficit. They also can't seem to get out of their way. They got batted around by the Padres yesterday. So the reality is that the Astros still have time to play to the talent that they are. We know they're capable of because we've seen it. We know they're a better team than Seattle because they're 4.5 games up. I mean, that doesn't happen by mistake in baseball. So you have to at least stay positive from that perspective. I think it's a real possibility that the Rangers pass the Mariners in the division, frankly. Particularly the Rangers now losing Luis Castillo, although those guys have arms coming out of the wazoo, arms out of the wazoo. So either way, there's still a lot to be positive about, and you got it's the best possible. The idea that we were able to give Tucker ABs and let him go 0 for 6, which you know is not going to sit well for him with 2Ks, but you get to do all of those things and you didn't lose any ground in the division. And again, the calendar's only getting shorter. So probably the 2 seed is out. But as we talked about on Go Astros on Monday, there's no real the bye hasn't been around enough to really show whether having the bye is a benefit or not. On the surface, sure, you want all the days off you can, but baseball is a sport of routine. It's a sport of consistency. And so you want to keep people getting at bats. You want to keep, as long as you can spread out the pitching duties, you want to make sure that you can keep people rolling. And I think that's why you saw several times in the last couple of years, a team that played in the wild card round were the ones that advanced to the ALCS. So, or the NLCS. So that's it. Go Astros tonight. And, if you lost anybody on 9/11, we're definitely thinking about you, and not the empty kind of prayers, but we are praying for you. And mass day today. So I will be, thinking about 9/11 and everything that happened. And hopefully we can move to a point where arguing about baseball is the biggest thing that we do. So until next time, I'm Jim Christopher. Go Astros.